I'm Mark Warman. I have a television show, wildly popular reality show. We're in our 20th season. Very busy shop. We have a lot of cars here because I'm known as the Mopar guru, the Chrysler muscle car aficionado, if you will.
I'm not quite sure I understand what the problem is. It doesn't sound too bad to me.
Yeah, let me tell you what the problem is, Doc. Okay, I'm surrounded by insanity every single day.
Let me explain. I have a responsibility in my job. It's a greater responsibility than you could possibly fathom.
We work on $1 million cars every day. That's high dollar stuff, okay?
A lot of stakes, a lot of cars. We have an enormously busy season, which, by the way, we're getting ready to film right now, which is why I need your help so I can get my head around this and somehow survive yet another nutty season.
So what seems to be the problem that you need my help with?
How much time you got, buddy?
1 hour.
Hour is not going to be long enough, my friend.
Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer and the antelope play.
The worst parts of the Bible have come to fruition.
I think Mark is crazy.
And the skies are not cloudy all day.
Just want to paint cars. Royal just taking another one for the team.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
This 1970 Plymouth GTX left the Lynch Road assembly plant with a 440 4-barrel Super Commando engine and a 4-speed manual transmission. Plymouth built 1,471 GTX models with a U-Code 440 engine and 4-speed transmission. Now, in the world of collectible Mopars, let's face it, that's not very rare. But this car is different. The things that make this car very rare and desirable start with a numbers-matching original engine and transmission. It also has the original fender tag, dash VIN, and all body numbers match. But the real cool part of this jewel lies in the colors. This GTX is a factory FT6 burnt tan saddle exterior. It also has a V1W white vinyl top and features a complimentary black bucket seat interior. The exterior is topped off with a V21 sport hood treatment and black longitudinal GTX sport stripes. Although the original pistol grip shifter is still in place, the seats have been changed out over the years. But that's no problem here at Graveyard Carz. We have an original pair of high-back factory bucket seats that will get new material, compliments of Marty, the interior man. And this car will look like new. Now let's talk about the car and where we are with it. When the GTX came to us, it had a lot of rust. Nearly the entire bottom portion from the floors, including the rails and wheelhouses, were rotten. And while most of the trim and the moldings were there, the car was clearly in dire straits. The East Coast is hard on cars, folks, and this New York-born GTX is a perfect example of exactly what hard on cars means. We located and acquired a 4-door 1970 Plymouth Satellite that was already missing the roof, and we're currently in the process of making the necessary modifications so that it will be an acceptable platform to receive the original GTX roof and inner structure. Right now, the GTX's original roof, along with the hidden trunk rail numbers, have been removed, dipped, and epoxy coated. And so, folks, all of that brings us to where we are today.
Okay, so what we're doing here today is we are converting a 4-door to a 2-door. The trunk floor is the same, the cab floor is the same, and we're getting ready to put in this rocker, and that's why I have Shane here that'll kind of explain it to us how this process is gonna go. So first off, what do we have to change to make a 4-door into a 2-door?
The main difference between a 2-door and a 4-door is the rocker panel, where the A-pillar for the front and rear door came in the middle, and it has the curve for the rear door to swing into. And when you have a two-door, the front door is longer on a two-door than it is on a four-door, and you move the B-pillar back on the rocker. So the rocker has no relief and a different place for the quarter to go over.
Will asked me very nicely, hey, can Shane and I please talk about converting a four-door platform into a two-door car? I said, certainly. I don't see any reason why you can't give that a try. I walked through everything with him. I gave him some bullet points, talking points we call them, and I cut them loose. Then I watched the edit. And when I watched the edit, I realized that while Shane is excellent at what he does, he has no idea how to say it. Will is a good painter, we'll just say that.
So what are you getting ready to do now?
So we're getting ready to section the rocker and cut it out here, and then put a sleeve in it to put the new rocker over for a two-door. When we put the roof on, the rear window regulator panel will come down and take the place of the seatbelt mount for the four-door and be moved forward a little bit in the regulator panel to make it into a two-door.
So I remember that a few seasons ago, I explained very carefully what it takes to convert a four-door sedan into a two-door hardtop. I'm going to play that now, and you'll thank me when it's over after watching Will and Shane, because you will now have a roadmap as to what it is they're saying. If you look right here, this is where your B-pillar would come up for a four-door. That's why you see the footprint of it. The length of the outer rocker is the same from a two-door to a four-door. We could just patch this in and you'd never even know it once the car was all painted, but we don't like to do things that way. That's not exactly the quality we're after. There is another thing. On a two-door, right through here, the outer rocker dips in to make the provision for the quarter panel. We could just cut this and do it ourselves, but we could also put the correct new rocker on it and come across the same finish line that way. You see what I'm getting at? Aren't you glad you watched that part with me?
So basically, you're just cutting here and just replacing this outer rocker here with a two-door one.
Correct.
Because of this recess area here.
Yes.
All right, so let's just pick this up and kind of show everybody.
Now you can see the difference between the two rockers.
Gotcha.
And how the curve for the door went in, and now how the pillar is going to be back further for the two-door.
Oh, so this is a pretty simple process then.
Yes, all we do is cut the two rockers, and then I take a section of the new rocker to make a sleeve to sleeve the two rockers together so it keeps its structural strength still. Right here is where it dips in for the quarter panel for the two-door to come down and wrap over the rocker panel. As on a four-door, there was no quarter panel, there was only a dog leg that came down right on the rear, and then there was a door that met the seam.
Look how good you're talking. You don't need any help at all. You're
Yeah.
enunciating and everything, putting words together.
So I know you're a busy man, and I know you have a TV show, but I feel like you're not telling me the truth.
Let me tell you about my employees, my friend.
I'd love to hear about them.
I got a family member that works with me. He's a great technician, Cousin Dougie. Phenomenal work. Built our engines, transmissions, our rear ends. Dougie is a good mechanic. Does a great job. I've known him my entire life, obviously. He's my mother's brother's son. We grew up riding motorcycles together. We got a lot of history together.
He's a great guy, got a heart of gold. Crazy as a crap house rat.
All right? Should have a revolving door to your office. This guy is out there on Pluto somewhere.
And because of that, I've always alleged, if you will, if you can say alleged.
Is that an okay word with you, Doc?
You may.
Yeah.
I've always alleged he's from another planet.
One time we were up shooting live on location at the top of the hill where we grew up.
He starts staring up to the sky. You know, like in those alien movies when they're getting ready to get abducted. You ever seen those?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, there's a lot of probing going on. I'm not talking about Ford probe, I'm talking about deliverance stuff here, okay?
Coming up, will Mark abandon his OEM roots when the owner requests four-wheel disc brakes on a 1970 Barracuda?
I don't want anybody at home to think I'm putting down the factory parts. I'm not.
Meanwhile, is Will and Shane's communication driving Mark up the wall,
I can do it, I just can't remember how to say it.
or fueling the fire for therapy?
This is a whole other area that you're gonna have to explore.
Find out when Graveyard Carz returns. Our 1970 Plymouth Barracuda convertible dream car is in assembly and under construction. So far, it's received a 392 Mopar Crate Hemi, a 5-speed Silver Sport manual transmission, and Moser Dana rear axle. After airing the installation of the factory brake system, the owner reached out to Mark and reminded him that this car is supposed to receive four-wheel disc brakes. Immediately upon being reminded, Mark set out to do his research, which led him to Willwood Brakes. Now that we've received all the components necessary to convert this classic to four-wheel disc brakes, Mark and Brian compare the original brake system components to the new brake system components and show how they're installed.
Now, the first thing that really jumped out at me as I was going through the parts and doing the comparison is, in the case of like the calipers, look at the size difference between an original cast iron caliper and their slick little 4-piston caliper setup. Besides the fact that it's smaller, I could tell automatically it was a lot lighter. Now, the cool thing about their calipers are they are very similar to the 66 to 69 4-piston caliper that came on when you did get disc brakes. So there's 4 individual pistons in each caliper. So I thought that was really slick. I also could tell by looking at the system that technology's come a long way since 1969 to today. And this looks much more precision. It's not that the other ones don't work fine. And if you're building an OE car to go to an OE event, you're almost gonna have to stick with OE appearing stuff. But if you're building a dream car so you can drive all over the country, build it the way you want, this system looks like it will provide that for us. Now, the other thing was the rotors. You pick up an original rotor, it feels pretty heavy. You pick up theirs, it's 2 pieces. It's a little bit in the spirit of the 66 to 69 where the rotor disc would come apart from the hub. You had to press out the lug nuts back in those days. But then in 70, they went to a 1-piece rotor where you didn't have to do that. This calls back to that, where you have a replaceable rotor that is bolted into place with the Willwood hub. Now you have a 2-piece rotor that looks like 1 piece that is considerably lighter and a really trick-looking part to go on that car. The ones that I ordered utilized the large bearing 73 and up style wheel bearing because I put 73 style stock spindles on it. You can see it's all put together there with Magnum Forces front suspension. It all plays really well together. It's just that this is a different type of technology from what the car was when it left the factory. So all of the cars use some type of way to mount the caliper. In the case of the 73 and up, it uses a caliper mount. So I got out the caliper mount and I compared it to that really streamlined looking little one that they offer, which I believe is billet aluminum. I could tell it was a lot lighter and everything just so much more compact. I think it allows you a lot more room maybe for wheel choices and things like that when you're not comparing it to a big clunky original piece of cast iron. I don't want anybody at home to think I'm putting down the factory parts. I'm not. I'm just opening our eyes to the idea that this can work as long as you're understanding that the overall appearance will not be the same as the OEM stuff because of the colors, because of the type of material that it is, but it all goes on in an OE fashion. It's in the spirit of OE applications. And so I signed off on it 100% to move forward and see what it looks like on the car. This is now in a position where it's ready to go onto the spindle, just like a regular rotor would go on. So we put that right there. And then he can put that bearing on, put your washer on. It's okay, go ahead and do your thing there. So you have a bearing, a washer, a nut, and then there's a retainer cage that's going to get a cotter pin through it.
And that's factory.
And that's the pieces.
Yeah.
He's got the spindle nut on there. We're just gonna tighten that down a little bit like we would on any one that we're working on. Whether it's a Willwood system or whether it's a stock system. You take that nut, what you wanna do is seat that inner bearing, make sure it's seated. So you go way past it, it's way too tight. But once you do that, you've seated everything onto the spindle, you back it off just a little bit, right there, so it has just a little bit, just a little resistance on it.
Mm-hmm. There's our keeper.
Then this little cage retainer right here, this is gonna hold the nut. This is gonna have a cotter pin that's gonna go through it like this. So this will go on here like that. This will go down. Just like that. Give it a little tap love through there.
I have side cutters.
All right, there you go. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull this one out and roll it up to here, like that. Tap that around to there. Clip this other end off here, like that. And now we can put that on there, run that down, Greg. Perfect, perfect, perfect.
Look at that.
A cool thing that I would like to point out is you see us putting the spindle cap in place on the new rotors. It's a screw-on style. It's machined aluminum and it has threads in it, and so does that hub. So on the original setups, you have a steel cup that we've built these little tools for it, little tubular shaped things that'll drive them in. That you've seen us many times over the years drive those on. You tap them into place. This, once you have everything set, you just screw it into place, give it a little tighten, and you're done. So it makes it more serviceable down the road. All right, so here's our caliper, which is just adorable.
Yeah.
I love this thing. I did the same thing. I compared this to an original caliper.
Okay.
Now, a note here is in 1969 and earlier, if you had a B body or an A body with disc brakes, it had a 4-piston caliper.
Okay.
In this case, they've done the same thing. If you look carefully in here, you'll see that they had 1, 2, 3, 4 pistons. They used the brake pads, just like the other system would. Just a really clean setup. We've got our hoses gonna go in here.
Yep.
This is our bleeder screw.
There's actually 4 of them.
Oh, 4 individual bleeders, which is much better. I love that.
So when this sits straight up, we will bleed the top 2. That's
Gotcha.
it. Yeah.
And so there's one more thing to show, and that is that they want a certain number of shims between here and the mounting plate, just like that. So what they want is these 2 shims right here to space this caliper back. You've already pre-fit this,
Yeah,
right?
pre-fitted. We always start with 2, and then we watch to see where our bolt ends up. As long as it's not sticking out past the clinch, that's what they call it. And then you can add different amounts of washers as needed.
So this just goes on here like this. All right, so we got 1 bolt started. That'll be a little easier now. Make sure that thing keeps moving. We want it to move, right?
Absolutely.
All right. And the other ones are here
Repeats.
and here. Okay. This goes down in here like this, folks. Has some pressure up against them to hold them in place. Take the bolt, push it through there without any luck. And now we can run those down.
Yep.
Once we have this caliper mounted and in place, the only thing left we're gonna have is the connection of the hose. And we're only gonna show you guys how this thing goes together on one side, because the other side's an identical twin to it.
Symmetrical.
Huh? Symmetrical, sure, we can use that word, Mr. Teacher Man. Symmetrical. What does asymmetrical mean?
It means that they're not the same.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so if you had, for example, a bowling ball.
Or me and Will.
Well, yeah, you and Will. You're definitely asymmetrical.
What the hell do I have to do with brakes? I don't work on them. I don't know them. There's no reason for my name to come up during a brake job in assembly, other than Mark to insult me, put me down, his normal routine.
Okay. Last thing to talk about is this little connection here. This is so cool. I compared this to an original.
Yeah.
This just is a really clean setup. It's braided line. It's got a rubber protector over the outside of it. Simply goes on like that right there.
It's actually an AN fitting there.
You got your wrench handy there?
Should be that one.
All right, we tighten that bad boy down right there. Make sure we got it right.
Beautiful.
That's tight. And now we have our two-piece rotor setup, our caliper mount, our new Willwood caliper, and a later model, really cool front disc brake setup.
I'm curious
That,
to hear
folks,
those
is what our
numbers.
Willwood front looks like. We are going to move to the back now, which is really where the changes come in, because we are now going to have, instead of rear drum brakes
Right.
from the factory, we are converting it to a disc brake
Brakes, yep.
rear. Let's have a look.
How old are you, Doc?
I'm not sure that's appropriate.
13 years on a restoration.
How long before the customer drops dead? Okay.
He's not a spring chicken anymore.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, well,
These are the things I deal with. This is my stress level, okay? Do you know what it's like to answer questions from people all the time about their cars? Guy with a Challenger that we're doing is getting a Hellcat in, an orange car, triple orange, replica of a show car. How's my car coming? When's my car gonna be done? What can you do? What can you show me? Show me a picture. I got a 70 Charger RT. B7 blue, white top, white interior, gorgeous car, 3 years late. Thank you, COVID. Thank you for that. I got a 70 CUDA 446 barrel 4-speed FE5 Rally Red that belongs to a huge rock star. Big dollar guy, big rock star. It dresses up like some kind of an insane ghoul with makeup all over the place. Just can't wait to go medieval on me when I don't have his car done.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. Wow.
Oh, you just feel free to join in anytime you want.
Listen, look,
It's not about you. This is about me, okay? This is my hour.
Okay, how come the rocker's not on yet?
Well, first we got to put the roof on to get the little triangle piece that goes in between the rocker and the floor to fit.
So you're saying there's a piece that goes between the rocker and the floor
Yeah.
that comes on the roof.
The piece that's on the roof needs to go in between the rocker and the floor.
How's the roof gonna go on?
The roof's still gonna go on and sit on the floor and on the wheel tub. And then the rocker's gonna slide up and in between the pieces once the roof's on.
Okay, so you're saying it gets a triangle piece
Inner structure.
that goes where?
That goes in between the rocker and the quarter panel.
The rocker, be more visual like.
We got the rocker. The inner structure support goes in between the rocker and the inner rocker.
Gotcha. And what's this for exactly?
That's gonna be the sleeve that slides in and welds the rocker, two rocker sections together.
So do you weld this first?
This half will get welded first on this side to hold it in place nice, so it helps guide the rocker over and holds it in.
And that's after the roof's on.
Yeah, after the roof is on, the rocker will still slide over and in between the A post or B post.
Which is this right here.
Yeah, the B post comes down and will mount onto the rocker.
Okay, and how's the roof gonna sit on without this piece on?
The roof is gonna come down and rest on top of the wheel tub and hold it up.
Okay. And then what goes on up here?
Then the A post comes down into the cowl and will hold the roof up front.
So it's just gonna rest here, or it'll slide into here on each side, and then just rest on the wheel houses on the back.
Correct.
And then this
And then
piece
the
goes
rocker
on?
will slide in underneath.
And does this get welded up first, or do you start welding around?
It'll all get fit together and welded equally together.
So Shane has reassured me, we're gonna set the roof on, it's gonna rest on the back, slide into the front here, then at that point, we can take our rocker with our sleeve that he showed us and set it up there, and then he'll start doing like a final fit before he starts welding, right?
Yes, you explain it so well.
What is so hard? This is what and you're great at it.
I can do it, I just can't remember how to say it.
That should be the easy part. Look what you've done here.
Yeah.
And you can't explain to the people at home what we got going on?
I learn as I go.
Well, that's not reassuring. Okay, so what does this look like putting it on? What needs to happen?
We're ready to put it on. We just need to get Jason and you to help set it in place.
Very clearly, Shane.
Okay, very
What needs to happen now so the people at home can understand?
Now, we need to get Jason
So we're gonna get Jason
and you
and myself.
get on the forklift.
I'm gonna be on the
We're
forklift
ready to put this roof on.
to get ready to put the roof on.
Yeah, and then we're gonna set it in place. It's gonna
And then
go
we're going
right
to
in.
set it in place and it's gonna go right in.
It might be a little difficult on the A-pillars getting those to line up, but
It's gonna be a
the rest
little
of the drop
difficult on the A-pillars. Go ahead. I'm just helping.
down. Okay. What else is there?
Apparently that's all. Okay, can we put the roof on now?
Yeah.
Okay.
When I was a little kid, I didn't have anything, okay?
This is a whole nother area that you're gonna have to explore inside here. I had nothing.
I worked hard for everything. My dad died when I was 12. I had 6 crayons out of an 8 crayon pack, and
They were all broken in half.
Why only
Okay.
6?
I appreciate it if you didn't interrupt.
Still to come, Mark and Brian continue the brake assembly on the 1970 Barracuda. But will the aftermarket conversion hold up to Mark's standards?
On the back, and you think, boy, what's going on there?
Meanwhile, Will and Shane have finished their explanation and are ready for action.
Is this too much for you to explain, Shane?
But will their teamwork prove better than their communication skills?
He's horrible at explaining.
Find out when Graveyard Carz returns.
When the hard stuff comes, because of my carpal tunnel and dead dad, I'll be over here narrating everything.
Okay.
But this is a typical, we could put any axle in the world that we want to put in here right now. We're just going to be putting the Mosier axle in with the Willwood brake setup.
Yep.
So let's just talk about a couple things real quick here. Very, very nice. Number one is you'll notice that these brakes, this is a very narrow brake on the back, and you think, boy, that's unsafe. What's going on there? Because it's not stopping the car anymore. All this is a park brake.
That's
the
it.
park brake goes inside the rotor, which is super cool. And then this will have a rotor on it, which will have our 4-piston caliper on there. So it's a
design.
really neat setup. You've got your plate, which has all your brake stuff on it, your brake springs, your shoes, everything's on it. Your bearings, obviously already pressed on here. You got your caliper mount already bolted into place, so we'll be able to load up our caliper mount when we're done here. Boom, 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 all those pieces. Park brake goes here. But this is the gist of how this crazy thing goes. So with that, I'll slide it in there. Take all the glory for that.
You know.
Go all the way to here. Walk it into the spider gears. And I will let you take over from there.
Thanks, buddy.
I'm going to step over here. Keep you guys entertained.
I'm gonna do a little
while
work
he
here.
is bolting that brake plate in place. So the principle behind this system follows the original suit. You've got a backing plate. We have backing plates too, but our backing plates that would hold the shoes are much bigger, way more. And again, it's not only a parking brake on an original car, but it's the main brakes in the back of the car. So yes, this has a backing plate. We have a backing plate. This has rear shoes. Ours had rear shoes on it. But what we never had was the disc brake feature on it. So the process he's going through, he has to take that stud and hold it in place, get the axle seated in, then the retainer, the collar that's going to hold the axle into the housing, has to go on far enough that he can get a nut. Once he gets the 5 nuts started, it's just a matter of running them down. How are we doing over there?
Got one nut started.
Because this takes a little bit of time and patience, and he gets very nervous around the cameras, we're going to cut. And the next time we pick back up, that's going to be all bolted down, and we're going to move on to, which one's my love camera? Move on to mounting the rotor in place, and after that, the caliper, and then making the connection at the hose, and we will have installed our first Willwood 4-wheel disc brake system.
Correct.
We have 3.5 million followers on Facebook that every day wait for me to post something that's mistaken and jump on me.
Do you have any pressure like that in your life? Any?
Well, that is, I'm not sure how to respond to that.
Now we have our axle all mounted in there. You have everything torqued down. It's not easy, is it?
It's
One
a bit
guy.
of a challenge, yeah.
Feel like a surgeon, you know how surgeons do? Scalpel.
Your rotor, sir.
All right, rotor.
Hold on. We need one thing before that.
What's your job?
Huh?
You're supposed to be telling me these things. Oh,
I'm
yes,
telling
there
you,
are these
this
little cool
guy.
things.
Yeah.
So what do they call these?
It's a rotor registration ring.
Okay, so what they're wanting to make sure is that this hole is centered on that axle. So they make this registration ring that would go like this, am I correct?
That's correct.
It would go through from the back and fit like that.
Yep. And that needs to precisely fit on our axle.
So it fits on here.
Yep.
But the other cool thing is, remember those brake shoes that I showed you guys right here? They're going to go here, inside. It's going to be right here that it expands out and all the brake work is done, while the caliper pinches it here. Very kind of
It's
a
very
two-in-one,
cool.
yeah.
So find a larger hole.
Multiple bolt holes right here. This is the one that we're going to go into. So this will go on here like that. And go ahead and put a retaining nut on there if you'd like to.
I would like 3 of them.
You'd like 3 retaining nuts, okay.
As per the Willwood instructions.
As per the They come with instructions? I wouldn't read them.
Yeah.
That's why I'm involved where I am now. Just come in and take some of the glory for it. All right, so the next thing, now that we have our rotor on and our axle with our backing plate and all our stuff, we're ready to put the caliper on.
Absolutely.
So hand me a rear caliper.
Okay.
Does that get shims too?
Same thing as the front, yep.
Same thing as the front. All right.
It's a little different. It doesn't have the Mickey Mouse look to it, see?
Yep, doesn't have the Mickey Mouse ears.
A little different.
Sometimes Mickey Mouse can be a term that when you refer to something not being engineered very well, that it's Mickey Mouse together or butchered. He's referring to Mickey Mouse, the character with the ears. If you look at the 66 to 69 pads and hold them up, disc brake pads, they have little Mickey Mouse ears on them. They're adorable. You know, hold it up to your little face and got little ears. Looks just like it. So that's what he means by Mickey Mouse. Not that the system's Mickey Mouse. It ain't Mickey Mouse. The original Mickey Mouse. Isn't there an original cartoon that just become public domain?
Steamboat Willie.
Roll that cartoon if we're short on time. Roll that cartoon. Steamboat Willie. You gotta use it for free and fill up 1.5 minutes of my show. Don't put that in. No. All right, so this is gonna go on here like this. Into position. This goes in here. All right, bolt. Okay, ratchet.
There you go.
And this other one, I think you gave me the wrench for. Is that right?
This one here.
Okay.
That one's for the brake line.
All right. Okay, that is tight.
Okay.
So the only thing I have left, folks, is the line, which is exactly the same as the front line.
Yep.
So I'm gonna make that connection right here. And that, folks, is how you convert a rear axle to disc brakes.
Drum to disc.
Just to take a disc brake. Did I say drum?
No. Convert from drum to disc, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't use the right vernacular, Mr. Teacher Man. Just one thing to point out here for everybody is take a look at how sanitary it is. It's a Dana rear end. This is an original inline tube that we modified to work with their flexible brake lines. And these collars are the trickiest things. No welding, where we normally would have to weld. These take the place of welding bracket holders. These are the holder for the lines, but they just screw on and they do not damage the paint. It is just super sanitary. This is an original distribution block. Everything is really nice for this system. All we have left now is to put the master cylinder on and bleed them out, right?
That's it.
All right,
Yeah.
Let's get it done. I got a daughter that used to work with me, loves me. Got 18 kids now. I never see her anymore. She's got 4. I don't really have 18. I mean, it's a lot of pressure, Doc. It's a lot of pressure right now. Going through a lot emotionally. I got a painter that walks in, lays some crazy crap on me he did that weekend.
That's Will. Will is a direct disobeyer. Okay, where I come from,
Men follow orders or people die. It's that simple.
it's from A Few Good Men, which is a movie, by the way, if you haven't seen it. I'm also known as a movie aficionado, if that helps anything.
He's a spoiled brat.
Brat. Will is a spoiled, rotten brat. That's why he disobeys.
What makes Will seem like a spoiled
Brat to you.
His dad was alive.
still to come. Brian puts the final touches on the new brake system, while Mark attempts to monetize his therapy sessions.
It's called product integration.
You ever thought about that?
Will raises the roof on the 1970 GTX, while simultaneously knocking down Shane.
You beat him down, you grind him down.
But will his teamwork prove fatal to his teammates?
Whoa!
Find out when Graveyard Carz returns.
So once we had the right side completely done, there was no reason for me to walk through it all with Brian. I just cut him loose to do that. It's the exact same thing. It's a mirror image of it on the other side. One thing that I would like to make a note of is, as I was keep referring to things being lighter and more compact, I was really curious to see just some of the key components, like the rotor, the caliper, the mount. What would they weigh differently than an OEM one? So I did just that. I got our little stamps scale out and I weighed these things, and this is interesting now, so pay attention. So the first thing I weighed was the caliper. The original 69 style cast iron caliper weighed 14 pounds, 1.2 ounces. The Willwood weighed a total of 3 pounds, 2.2 ounces. About 11 pounds difference right there, just in one part, folks. I weighed the front rotors. That one-piece Marianne original factory cast iron rotor weighed 23 pounds, 2.2 ounces. And weighing in the middleweight class was the Willwood two-piece aluminum at 12 pounds, 7.2 ounces. That is 10.5 pound difference. Just look at the weight difference just on one front axle. Now you go to the back and we have the same thing going on. We have a one-piece drum which weighed 16 pounds, 13.8 ounces. That's the factory weight. Against the new slick Willwood version with the parking brake built into it at 11 pounds, 2/10 of an ounce. That's almost a 6 pound difference. So that's somewhere around 27, maybe even as much as 30 pounds by the time you put the rest of the pieces on that I didn't weigh. 30 pounds on one axle in the front. Right front's 30, right rear's 30, so that's 120 pounds. That's, you add in the rest of the pieces, you know. This is like when you kick your friend out who's a little bit overweight, but if you knew you were gonna race somebody, you kicked the 150 pounder out of the car. That is horsepower to weight. Very important thing in drag racing, but you'd always come back around and pick him up. Usually you'd made it over to Bob's for the 19-cent hamburgers by that time, ironically. But in the end, the point is these really were a much lighter and more streamlined looking system. If you're going to a show, an OE event, original equipment, you would not want these on your car. If you're driving it every day and want that comfort of that disc brake calling out to you like in Tommy Boy, you're guaranteed to stop. It's okay. That's the system to go with. Hey, by the way, I can put this in our show. It's called product integration.
You ever thought about that? You don't charge me, but I put you in my show? Huh? We could get a thing going. Hey, we could get a thing going like
in Sopranos. Remember Dr. Milfy?
I called her Dr.
Whoa!
God, you're so.
Okay, go ahead.
Is this too much for you to explain, Shane?
No, you're doing good. Right on.
Doing good. Can you at least tell everyone what we're doing, Shane? Or is that too much?
Yeah, that's too much.
Yeah.
I think it's
That's
obvious.
all you got is yeah. So what I do is exactly what Mark does. You beat him down. You grind him down. You treat him like crap. You get him right on the edge of going off that cliff. Well, forward's different than back, Shane.
Forward and back.
And then you reel them back in. So you've had them at their lowest moment. Now it's time to build them back up. Do the same thing with my kids. He's horrible at explaining.
Knock them down.
How do your kids learn?
They got teachers.
All that aside, the group of guys that we have right now are the best. The thing about people that make it look great at what they do, it's making it look easy for people at home to say, wow, that was actually pretty easy to do.
Hold on.
I'm not doing anything.
Come down a little, 2 inches.
When you look at that roof going on, yeah, we just dropped it down and went right on. But the time that goes in to cutting, measuring, making sure the A pillar is perfect, the B pillar, making sure all that just lays, that takes tons of experience and knowledge and planning on Shane's part. You always have to do a little massaging when you go to set the roof on. It just doesn't slide right in. So it takes a little finesse, getting everything just right. But what Shane was able to do was take a rusty 2-door GTX, put a 4-door floor on it, and bring a car back to life. And I stand back and look at how this whole build has went, and I'm super proud and super happy with what they've accomplished. Okay, so is the roof in place for you like the way you want it?
Now the roof's sitting good.
Now the roof's in good. Good. What is next?
Now we're gonna check all the door jam.
So we're gonna check the door jams?
We're gonna check the door jams and make sure everything's perfectly in place.
And then we're gonna make sure everything's perfectly in place.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So at this point, what's next for me?
Now we're done with you.
You're done with me. He's done with me, people. Thank God, I'm gonna go back to the paint.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you, Jason. So now that they have the roof in place, we can cut them loose on getting all the welding done, outer rockers, and so forth. So folks, all of you guys at home, next time you see this car, Birdie will be jamming the FT6 Dark Tan Metallic, which is gonna be a gorgeous color on a gorgeous car.
So after Brian was finished installing everything, I actually had a meeting to run to. And so I left him to put the master cylinder on. But when it first showed up, I did a comparison with it, just like I did with all the other parts. And I will say that is a pretty trick setup. It's an aluminum housing versus a cast iron. It's great looking.
We're actually going to mate this new Wilwood master cylinder up against the original factory brake booster. It's just going to slide right in there. And we're going to fasten it with 4 nuts.
It's a very well-engineered system that I highly recommend now. And I think that as we do more and more of the dream car builds and people see this, they're going to be requesting it. So I have no problem putting it on if I know that it's a safe system and as long as they understand it doesn't look 100% like the one that the factory did. If that's not your goal, this is the way to go.
Torque those down.
The reason I say it, the appearance doesn't matter to everybody is we all know a 1970 Cuda never left the factory with a 392, 485 horsepower engine. At the end of the day, you've got a car that has aftermarket transmission and engine in it. Now you have aftermarket brakes, but when you look at the car going down the road and you walk up to it at a car show, if that hood's closed, you think you have a 100% OEM 1970 Plymouth Cuda convertible, an FE5 Rally Red. That's what we do at Graveyard Cars. They're called dream cars because that's what I do, is I bring dreams to life. The Dream Maker.
Okay, so the last thing I have to do here is I have my brake lines ready to go. I need to tighten those in and screw those into the proportioning valve, which I'll do right down here. And once I have those lines tightened in place, and Mark gets back from whatever errands he's running, we'll be able to bleed these brakes and have this system ready to go.
Years ago, I was called the Dream Maker. And I thought, well, that's a heavy scene, man. You know, that's laying a lot on a kid's shoulder, the Dream Maker. Like, I'm gonna make a dream come true, you know. But, nah, you know, I gotta go with it. I've made a lot of dreams come true, and this is just another one, so.
Seems that our hour is up.
Same time next week, Doc?
I'm thinking we should definitely set up another appointment. Does that work for your schedule?
I mean, if you absolutely think we need to.
I think it would be beneficial.
Should I be laying down for this?